Well, again, this is a governmental control and regulation which is probably unnecessary. I think that the states need to regulate this. You know, the Constitution says in the 10th Amendment, if it's not specifically indicated in the Constitution that the federal government has control, then the states control. So I think the states need to control their own licensing. You would think that the Second Amendment would make sure and guarantee that states abide by the other states' regulations, so long as they're in...
Abide by the Constitution.
Abide by the Constitution.
Plus, you know, when you apply for your handgun permit, it's a federal background check and everything. And I myself have a Utah permit. I think there's something like 30 states is reciprocal with that. And if, you know, when you apply, you have a federal check. That should cover every state in the United States if you've got that handgun permit. For Connecticut, it should cover you for the whole United States because your background check is a federal background check. And, you know, just like your driver's license, you can go drive anywhere in the United States. It should be the same thing with the handgun.
I think your example is analogous because if you're driving a car in Connecticut, which is a lethal weapon if used improperly,
Absolutely.
you could take that lethal weapon across the state and
Not a problem.
and do the same thing. The only thing I'd say is perhaps permitting of guns should be done by a federal agency, but I'm hesitant to say that because federal agencies do things so poorly.
In general, is it fair to say that you're in favor of smaller federal government?
Oh, absolutely.
There we go.
Protect our God-given rights. That's what it says in the Declaration of Independence. Why is it that our federal government today is our biggest threat to our freedoms?
Well, you know, the federal government always seems to do, it has an idea in mind, has perhaps a good idea. It always turns out backwards, 180
If it
degrees.
abided by the Constitution that every politician swears to, it wouldn't.
Well, the government always does things backwards. They have a good thought in mind that it comes out bad. It's too big. It can't. That's why the Constitution says in the 10th Amendment, if it's not in the Constitution, you give it to the states.
But they ignore it. But they ignore it.
I know. Well, I know that. I started by saying that the Constitution is ignored and trashed. Unfortunately.
Are you familiar with the Oath Keepers organization?
I've heard of it.
I'm just thinking that maybe it would be a good idea if we had a similar organization for politicians going to Washington.
That's brilliant. That is brilliant.
What is going on with the Occupy this and that in Wall Street scenario that we're now in this last week and a half or so, or 2 weeks now?
Well, my feeling about it is that people can do what they want in terms of protesting. I'm not completely sure what they're protesting other than free enterprise, but they have the right to do that, and we can't take away that right. That right was granted to them by the same Constitution that said it. I mean, I think they're angry. We're all angry. I'm angry. Everybody's angry. Aren't we all angry? So they're angry and they're protesting.
Would you like to come to our range and learn how to shoot?
Absolutely. By the way, talk about firearms. My grandfather purchased a camp in Goshen, 1947, and we did have rifles. And I can't, for the life of me, remember what type of rifles they were. But they were the kind of rifle that bolt action, single bullet, very old rifle, because probably 40s or 50s vintage. So I did shoot at Camp Birchwood, you know, with those rifles at the time when I was a young. Anything else? Or?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark.